please welcome Lorelei.
Hi guys, I'm Lorelei. Thank you, Stephen. Okay, I'm gonna read you something that I've never read before. Usually I only read parts of my novel that are about porn, because it seems the most entertaining. But I'm gonna try something different this time. By the way, I spent the day playing a rock star in a porn movie, which is not a job. I mean, it's a 15-year-old's dream, right? Anyway, so I'm a little bit tired, but I'm gonna try to do this good, do this well. My novel has three main characters, and two of them appear here. Sam, who is a teenager at this point, and her mother, Deirdre, who is a second-wave feminist, ex-Catholic, but that's not really important. And Sam, who's the point of view here, her best friend has just been sent to live with her grandparents because she got pregnant. So this is Sam, 1999. After Constance left, Sam had been drawn to Julio. He knew her secrets. He seemed to control things. He was the one everyone called when they were in juvie. He was the one they called when somebody was having a bad trip and needed help coming down. He fed people toast and water and black coffee on Sunday night when they were drunk and had to go home to their parents or their step-parents or their foster parents. He was the one who found Liz the night she went missing, and they had all split up to search every sand dune on Ocean Beach, every payphone on Newport Avenue, every backyard from West Point Loma Boulevard to Narragansett Street, scared that she'd been arrested or kidnapped or passed out or wandered into the waves, stoned and hallucinating. When they all met up again back at Julio's that night at 3 a.m., Liz was sitting on his couch with a blanket around her shoulders drinking tea. "She's fine," Julio said, and that had been the end of it. Sam looked at the box of tea out on the counter and the little pot still partway full of water and realized that Julio was the kind of person who had tea. This, of all the things he'd done, was the thing that seemed most telling. Julio asked Sam to move in with him in the middle of her senior year. His brother was moving out, going to LA with another skater who said he could get him sponsorship. Sam's mom had been pregnant again, and their house seemed to be shrinking, and she told her mother not to worry, she'd only be a few blocks away. Deirdre hadn't wanted her to leave, but Sam promised that she'd come by every day after school or weekends after work. It would be the same, she said, except they would all have a little more room. Deirdre held her belly, rubbed the low, hard curve of it, and made the mournful face that Sam hated. "Well, you're 18 now," she said. "I guess I can't stop you." Sam moved her half dozen boxes in late January. Luis had left his futon behind, and Sam and Julio slept separately for the first month. Then, late one night during a party, she had leaned into him. That was all. They were sitting next to each other on an ottoman, and she leaned back into his cotton t-shirt and deodorant smell, and he shifted to support her weight. That night, when they got home, he held her hand and led her into his bed. She had sex with him because she wanted to know what it would feel like, what the big deal was. It hurt a little, but what she liked was seeing his face go weak, seeing him work for her. And then his body laid out on the gray sheet with a streetlight coming in the window and a feeling of dominion that she knew was temporary, but that thrilled her all the same. The next night, when he took her hand again, she shook her head. She needed to be alone some, to take her time with this new thing. She went into her room and looked at herself naked and put her hand on her own breast to see what he had felt when he touched her. The night after that, he came home with Liz, and Sam could hear them through the wall. It was a month before she slept with him again. It was March, and she was writing midterm papers about Virginia Woolf and about the kinds of cells in the human body, and she put her notebooks on the floor and took the bottle of Casadoras from the cabinet and swigged from it before she knocked on the door of his bedroom. They did it for a week straight. On the last day of the week, while she was still asleep, he left and came back with a white paper bag of donuts and a cup of sweet, milky coffee. She sat up bare-chested in his bed and said thank you and got crumbs all over his sheets. That night she went to work late at the Overeasy, and when she got home, he had left a note, went to visit Luis, be back in a couple of days. He came back a week later, and he had a girl with him who he introduced as a friend of Luis's and who he spoke to only in Spanish. The girl stayed a month. She and Sam smiled wordlessly at each other outside of the bathroom late in the morning when they had just woken up. They had maybe 100 comprehensible words between them, and Sam liked her well enough. But by the time the girl left, Julio seemed a stranger again. It was April and still cold. Sam was spending a lot of time at the beach, shivering out on the rocks and trying to paint with a little tray of watercolor tubes she had taken the bus downtown one afternoon to buy. It was near impossible to get the colors right. The ocean was blue, and then it was green, and then it would turn purple, and her brush splayed out or blotted wetly and tore the paper. Late at night, after work, she would take a taxi to her mother's house and watch Deirdre sleeping on the couch with the TV on and Sam's 2 baby sisters curled around her. Lily was 2 now, and Harriet, only a month old, swaddled in a blanket with her fat alien baby face squished against Deirdre's shoulder. Since Sam had moved out, it was maybe once a week that she saw them awake. And then her mother mostly wanted Sam to watch the girls for an hour while she cleaned the house. Sam collected Harriet's gangly limbs in one arm, and with the other arm, she cranned the chipmunks and tornadoes and monster heads that Lily demanded she draw. Deirdre, grimacing and frustrated, pulled moldy yogurt containers from the back of the fridge and scrubbed dry spaghetti sauce off of the stovetop, while Carly Simon sang at full volume on the record player. At night, after work while they slept, Sam drew her mother and sisters in the flickering blue TV light. She did 50 sketches of her mother's face, stiff even in sleep and etched with shadow. It was at the end of April when Sam came home one night close to 2, still thinking of the lines that crosshatched her mother's mouth, and found Julio in the kitchen, drinking a 40 by himself. His eyes were red and glassy, and she thought he must be incredibly stoned. "Hey," she said, and then she realized that he had been crying. "Luis is dead." He said it carefully, like he was reading it out of a book. He didn't look at her. He stared at the little flag of foil that he had unpeeled at the top of his beer bottle. Shit. Yeah, shit. Fuck. It couldn't be true. She pulled a kitchen chair up next to his, and the scraping sound it made seemed violent in the quiet. "He's always doing stupid shit," Julio said. "Dumbass. Pendejo." Sam took his hand. It was sticky and hot. She wanted to ask him how and what happened, but when she touched him, his face deteriorated, melted like soft wax. It scared her. His lips, jaw, forehead sagging, and then his neck wobbled, and he began to lean forward like all of him was turning to liquid. Sam couldn't think what to do except put a hand against his chest to contain him. She put her other hand behind his neck, and she was grateful that he still felt solid, full of meat and string. He curled into her, and she moved her hands up and down on his back, pressing the hard knobs of his spine. Breath squeezed out of him, his sobs high and uncontrolled like a child's. Sam felt suddenly as though he belonged to her, and she was scared again. They stayed there until her leg was asleep, and then longer until it was painful and she was afraid to move it. And then finally, his body seemed to give out. His breath deepened and slowed and was soft on her neck. And carefully, Sam shifted her shoulder and then her arms, and then carefully stretched her legs and used her whole body to help him stand. She poured a glass of water and made him drink it and stood in the doorway of his bedroom while he undressed. He got into bed like a sick person, one heavy limb after another, and then she pulled the blankets up over his shoulders. "Please," he said, "stay." So she stayed. In the morning, she woke to him kissing her, and she kissed him back, her breath sour and her tongue dry, and he began to undress her. She felt his cock pressed against her hip, and she took him inside of her, and as she did, she thought of draining him. She thought of taking every part, all of his sorrow and his love. He came with a shudder, making almost no sound, And then he looked at her with wet eyes and said, "Thank you." It felt like a strange thing to say, but she let it be. Thanks.